Meal prepping. Let's just say no to processed foods. Hey, I'm Clive Bird, and welcome to the 7th episode of the Clive Bird Experiment, where I research topics here on YouTube and then try them out myself, so you don't have to. In this episode, I'm going to share with you what I've learned about meal prepping, how it maximized my spare time, saved me money, and how it improved the nutritional quality of the food I'm eating. Having good quality, nutritious food should not break the bank or take up all your life. Meal prepping has become incredibly popular over the last couple of years. Meal prepping means you take it one block of time to prepare all your meals for the week. It looks great on social media, but how easy and how convenient is it really? Meal prepping looks great on YouTube and social media, but it does take a lot of time and dedication to get it right. And it facilitates an easier pathway to achieving your nutritional and dietary goals, whilst saving you money. Before we talk about the pros and cons of meal prepping, I think it's important to acknowledge that everybody has their own nutritional requirements. Some people have, a high active life and they're eating very well, and some people eat more convenience because they feel they don't have the time, and a lot of people eat in a certain way in order to save money. Now, there's also different levels of meal prepping. You can go, I'm going to make everything from a scratch approach, where you're making all your bolognese and your pasta sauces and everything from scratch, or you're just going to use a jar. Either way is completely fine. It's up to you and what you want to achieve out of your life. I'm not here to preach and say, I make everything from scratch, or I use a jar for convenience. Sometimes use a jar because it's convenient, and sometimes I make everything from scratch. It all depends on what I'm making and how the week I have ahead is. The other most important aspect to meal prepping is think about the food you like to eat. It's all very well preparing all these healthy meals and healthy foods and all the things that they're showing you online. But if you don't like that food, it's going to be a very hard week if you're eating the same things that you don't enjoy. Meal prepping is all about creating a balance that you can control. So yes, throw in a few meals that aren't particularly your favorites, but are very healthy and nutritious. But throw in a few meals in there that you really enjoy and you really get a lot of satisfaction out of eating. It's important to find balance. With everything we do, balance is the most important thing, and it's the thing that will help us stick to everything. So let's talk about some of the proposed savings for meal prepping. The first big one is it saves you time. The second is it saves you money. The third, you can better manage your portion sizes. It lowers your stress. You'll gain a new handy skill as you learn to cook and prepare these meals. And it creates a better relationship between you and your food. There are, however, some negatives to meal prepping. By far the biggest problem to meal prepping is committing your time and effort to achieving the goal. Another major negative is you generally find that you eat the same meal over and over again, which can prove hard if you're the type of person that enjoys variety and different things every day. Prepping requires a certain amount of commitment from planning to execution. If you're the kind of person who enjoys comfort eating, enjoying a nice tasty meal at the end of the day, you might feel a little hard pressed if you're having the same meal for the 4th time in the row. But there are ways around that. I meal prepped every day for 3 months. It was difficult in the beginning as I didn't have the correct containers or an idea of what to cook. I didn't know what foods kept really well and what foods were freezable, and half the time I didn't think of good easy combinations. Because my starting goal was to help myself and my family lose a few pounds, I was trying to make meals as healthy as possible. It was good in theory. However, have you ever tried to get children to eat healthy all the time and add that children on the spectrum, and you soon realize you have to cater towards your audience? You can't prepare ultra healthy food and expect everybody to enjoy it when it's not what they're used to eating. Prepping meals in advance definitely makes sense. I mean, we all have busy lives. Someday we come in at 6 o'clock and we have to, rush around and cook some tea. And to be able to open the fridge and pull a meal out and, have it delivered on the table in 3 minutes does make life so much simpler. But there are often nights where you get in early and you're like, I don't feel like that, ready-made. I don't feel like that meal prepped spaghetti bolognese, or I don't feel like that meat and veg. I feel like going out for food, or I feel like, just eating something different, or a salad or something. And you should be able to still make that food. If you feel like you have the time, meal prepping and prepping shouldn't be, this is what you're having every day. You have to allow yourself some flexibility in what you're doing. And if you're making food that doesn't have a long shelf life, you can end up with just as much waste as you did before you started prepping. So it's important to prep things that you know you can keep, and maybe not prep the fresh food that you know might last longer not prepped. I mean, my ultimate goal was to go to the grocery store once a week. So I would go through my cupboards on a Saturday and see everything that I had in the stores and everything, and then I would put it all out, and then I would go on my recipe books, or I'd go on BBC Foods or wherever, and I would look up dishes to make, and I would just make a list of the items I needed and go and buy them on a Sunday before I started cooking. This really helped save money. I found that our weekly grocery shop, dropped by almost £20 a week just by focusing and planning what we were eating for every meal of the week in advance. And with the current cost expenses that have gone up lately, it definitely made a difference to our shopping budget. When I first started meal prepping, I found the planning of the meals was a bit hectic. At first, I couldn't think of what to make, and I couldn't think of what to put together. I couldn't get the right combinations of things that could last, sort of 5 days in the fridge and then also be frozen. It took a few weeks of trial and error to find the things that were really, really good. But by the end of the first month, we had a list of, 10 or 12 things that we really enjoyed. And those became our staple meals. So I would generally make 4 different meal combinations a week. And then after 5 days, I would put those meals that hadn't been eaten in the freezer. I would do this alternative for about 3 weeks. And then I would find by the 4th week, I would have sufficient food in the freezer to maybe last another week or 2 weeks even sometimes, depending on how life went. And those weeks where you didn't have to go to the shop, you really noticed your savings because you were buying bread and milk and the essentials, maybe a bag of salad, and you were spending maybe £15 on your week's shopping. I also found you can make meal prepping as difficult or as easy as you want. On a Sunday when I do most of my prepping, I'll easily set up one meal in the slow cooker, so I always make one meal in the slow cooker. So it's just really one pot one day, you chop everything in there that you're going to put, and you let that slow cook for 8 hours. That's your first one you start off. Then I'd usually do a roast dinner on the Sunday. So while I'm doing the roast dinner anyway, I would cook, the other 2 meals. I might make a bolognese and do a lasagna, a few single pot portion lasagnas. I would also maybe make a spaghetti bolognese. And then what I found was lasagna, spaghetti bolognese, shepherd's pie, cottage pie, all the traditional dishes that we love so much, a nice stew, they all freeze really, really well. They all have amazing shelf life. And what I found was I started making bigger and bigger batches of these dishes. So I would spend maybe a Sunday and I would make like 15 mini single portion lasagnas. And then I would put them in the freezer. And I got my meal prepping down to a couple of hours on a Sunday with one big Sunday a month. And the time that gave me on the evening, especially when you come in from work, you've got the kids from school, you come in, you're opening the fridge, you're grabbing a meal, you're putting it in the microwave, you're warming it up. I even convinced my family to eat out of the meal prep containers so that there was less washing. Literally rinse it out in the sink, stick it in the dishwasher, and by the end of the week you put the dishwasher on once and everybody's been fed all week. And the important thing is you always have to have things for the nights where you don't feel like something you've prepped. Like quite often if I've had a busy day at work, I just wanted like a comfort food, and my favorite go-to meal is a cheese omelette. I love a cheese omelette, but you're not going to meal prep a cheese omelette. It takes 2 minutes to make anyway. But some nights you just want something fresh and something different. And it's important to have those things in your fridge. And let's face it, eggs keep for ages. So you can buy your eggs in bulk. I'm quite fortunate. I have my own chicken, so I get fresh eggs all the time. And you're not losing any time. Like sometimes I'd come in from work and all 4 of us would eat a different meal. And that is the main benefit of meal prepping, is if you're prepping for everybody's individual tastes, people can be eating what they want to eat every day. Like my son, he absolutely loves a chicken korma, and I'll make a big batch of chicken korma, and he'll probably eat chicken korma every day for 1 week. And then he'll turn chicken korma down for 3 weeks because you'll be like, no, I've had enough of it now. So it's important to understand and ask people what they want to eat. I personally don't like to eat the same food every day. I like to change around and I like to try different things. My wife, she doesn't mind having the same thing every day as long as it fits in with her routine. She's a convenience eater. She doesn't like cooking or preparing food. So For her, it's convenient to go to the fridge, open the fridge, choose a container, warm it up and eat it. On the whole, meal prepping has worked really well for our family. It's saved us a load of time, it's saved us a load of effort, and more importantly in this day and age, it's saved us a lot of money. Where 1 week a month, we're pretty much going shopping budget free. And with experience now, we're able to cook bigger quantities less often. So instead of doing 4 meals on a Sunday, I'm doing one big one every Sunday. And that's sort of a meal a week, which saves a lot of time. But as I said earlier, the best part of meal prepping is the time it saves you washing up pots. You know, you come home in an evening, if you're cooking every night, you have all these dishes to wash. Meal prepping is you have 1 day of dishwashing and cooking, and then the rest of the week it's literally rinse out, little wrap in the sink, dishwasher. And the time it saves you and the amount of effort it takes, you know, really changes your life. I mean, we all have really busy lives. We sometimes just want to come home and vegetate, or just we've had a really stressful day. We don't want to be thinking about all the jobs we have to do. And meal prepping definitely does reduce your daily work. But the secret to meal prepping is not so much a case of, well, there's a few secrets to meal prepping. First one is picking the right meals. And the second one is making a good plan. And the third most important one is containers. Now, you see loads of people on YouTube, they have these fancy glass containers with the plastic lids. They look really smart. They're like £10 each or like £5 each. You don't need to go to that cost. You know, anybody in the UK, if you order a Chinese, you get those little plastic tubs from the Chinese with the plastic lid. Well, you can go to Tesco's or any of the major supermarkets and you can buy those tubs for about 10 quid for 20, and they last months. You know, they do eventually break. I'm not saying they last forever. It is a recurring. But if you compare it to the amount that you spend on the glass dishes, I haven't really seen the cost efficiency of buying the glass ones yet. I think in the time I've been doing meal prepping now, and that's been over 3 months, I think I've bought 2 packs of these containers and I've thrown about 3 away. 3 tubs out of the 10 pack. So they last extremely well. They stack really well in the fridge. Their sizing diameters work really well in the fridge, because I find I can get, you know, something like 20 meals on a shelf, which is like really good. And the portion size, what I find, is really good. I mean, you can get a lot of food in them, and you can easily get your 500 or 600 calories in one of these dishes. I took meal prepping, and I've meal prep breakfast, lunch and supper. So for breakfast, I would always put I'd have various different Tupperware containers. I would have, you know, eggs to make scrambled egg, and, you know, 2 slices of bread and a little pot of butter. So my 12-year-old son could just open the fridge and grab it, and he could make his own breakfast with ingredients already calculated, so he knew exactly how many calories he was eating. This really helped him on his road to losing weight and learning how to control his own diet. He would make really good decisions. If he had a high-calorie breakfast, he would choose a salad or a lower-calorie lunch, and vice versa on an evening. If he had a high-calorie day, he would go, oh, you know what, I'm just going to have a salad tonight, or I'm not actually that hungry, I might fast. And just by giving him the choice and not enforcing anything, and just by being a good role model and having the choice there for him, really has helped him. There are a few things that took me a little while to figure out, but that have made the whole process of meal prepping a lot simpler. The first one is invest in a slow cooker. I know it sounds like a relic from the 1970s, but a slow cooker, especially a decent sized, good quality slow cooker, is absolutely a convenience appliance when it comes to meal prepping. Rather than having to slave over hot stove and hot oven for hours and hours, it's just a case of chopping up your items into this one big bowl. They come with a really decent recipe book, and before you know it, you've got a pulled pork, slow cooked chicken. You can do pretty much anything in a slow cooker. Once it's all finished, you divide your contents up amongst your containers, and you can easily end up with 6 to 7 meals that have taken you maybe an hour to prepare, or maybe half an hour to prepare. And again, the first mistake that I made is when I started meal prepping is I started trying to make meals that weren't our normal meal. Now, we eat these things, we eat the certain things we eat because we enjoy them. So if you're trying to load your family up on all these, healthy ingredients and healthy foods, cook them in a way that your family's going to enjoy them. That is the most important part, is make sure that when you prepare the food, it's cooked and prepared in a way that's enjoyable. or you're going to end up with just as much waste before and feel like you've wasted even more time when you're having to make other meals because your kids won't eat your food. As I said before, the right container is imperative. Now, it doesn't matter what you choose. If you want to go dead fancy with glass and plastic lids that are, recyclable and last a very, very long time and really probably very good for the environment, or you want to go for these plastic, takeaway type boxes that have a plastic lid on that stack really well in the fridge, freeze really well, are really cost effective and last, in my opinion, a relatively long time. The decision's yours. Nobody's going to tell you what to do and what to not do. This is not an advertisement for look how neat my fridge looks and look how well. This is real life cooking and this is real life living, and at the end of the day, whatever works for you is what's important. But having containers that stack really well and can maximize the use of your refrigeration space is really important, because if you're filling your fridge shelves up and then 5 days time you've only eaten half and you're putting that half in the freezer, they need to stack well in the freezer as well. And I find the clear plastic lids, you don't even have to write what's in them because you can just pick them up and look, and it makes life so much easier. And price is always important. Price was a deciding factor for me. I didn't want to spend a lot of money because I didn't see the value in it. And now that I'm well established in meal prepping, I still don't see the value in buying these glass dishes. The potential for them breaking and for you losing a lot of your investment is much higher, especially if you have children, than the plastic Tupperware containers or the plastic pots. The biggest key to success when it comes to meal prepping is planning. Now, I like I said, on a Saturday, I'll go through all the fridges and all our storage cupboards and I'll see what we have. And then what I'll do at the same time is I'll say, this is what I've got. What do you guys fancy for food this week? And my wife and son will usually say their usuals: spaghetti bolognese, chicken korma, pizza. And I go, right, okay. I'll make sure that we do at least 2 of them. And then we'll figure out with what's left over here what we can make. And some weeks it turns out really well and everybody's like, oh, this is really amazing. And then some week goes, this is a bit random. And you go, well, it's the end of the month. We're just trying to get through till payday. Before you know it, it's not as bad as that. You're not eating, weird combinations, because you sort of get into a routine of what you're cooking and what you're doing. By planning and by structuring what you're going to cook, it allows you to save money because you can buy in bulk. You can, it's not massive cost savings buying a kilogram of, gherkins or a kilogram of potatoes, when you could buy 10 kilograms of potatoes probably for like double the price of a kilo. If you're planning what you're doing and you're going to use those quantities in a month, you can actually save a hell of a lot of money by buying in bulk. And that's the power of what meal prepping does. Having a plan for the month and buying in larger quantities when you need them really does save a lot of money. Having a firm schedule for the day you're going to do your meal prepping definitely helps. For myself, I do it mostly on a Sunday. However, I do work shifts and occasionally I work weekends. So if I'm working on a Sunday, I'll do it on the Monday. But it's generally either the Sunday for me or the Monday. And if I was on a normal Monday to Friday job pattern, I would do it every Sunday. Having a dedicated day or a dedicated routine as to when you're going to do your meal prepping sort of gets your head in the right place. And it kind of allows you to go, this is not bad. I put a podcast on in the kitchen, or I put my favorite TV show on. I'm cooking and I'm watching a TV show, or I'm cooking and listening to, Andrew Huberman tell me about intermittent fasting. Meal prepping is not lost time. And that day that you spend in the kitchen is not lost time, because you planned it right, you have your devices around you, and you still get the most out of the day. But it's the time you get after that that is really beneficial. And again, I can't reiterate this enough times. If you're trying to meal prep to have a healthier life, start small. Don't cut everything out straight away and prep all these amazingly healthy meals and then expect to stick to it, because it's not going to happen. We're humans. We love our comfort food. This is not a diet regime. This is all about convenience and creating more time for yourselves. If you have a dietary or a health goal, absolutely work it in. But don't try and become Mother Teresa when it comes to, eating healthy. It's not possible, and you'll just end up wasting just as much food or wasting more money. The secret is to create a balanced diet where you're getting your healthy meals and your slightly unhealthy meals or your comfort foods, and work them in together. And then over time, you can move them on either side of the fence, depending on how you feel and how you're adapting to your diet. It's pointless doing really well and then sitting in front of the TV at 9 o'clock at night after cutting out all sugar for the day and going, do you know what, I really want a chocolate bar, and then smashing in a whole slab of chocolate. It undoes everything that you're trying to achieve during the day. And then there's tools. If you're truly trying to, create a nutritional profile of what you're eating, and you're making your meals from scratch and you have no idea how many calories everything is, as you make your meals and you're weighing out your food and all that, go and download MyFitnessPal. It's a free app, and you can go into the menu and you can create your own meals, and then you can just build your meal up. And then once you finish building it up, you put all your weights of all your food in, and then you divide it amongst your pots, and then you just turn, say, 6 portions, and it divides it for you, and then you'll be able to say, oh, that's 400 calories. I can add some potato in there, or I can add, a slice of garlic bread, and then make a side garlic bread to go. Or if it's like, oh, that's 600 calories, I'm not going to add anything more to that because that's more than enough calories for my objective. If you really want to take control of your diet, planning and using these tools that are free online are great ways to learn about what you're eating, learn what the nutrition they offer, and really focus on improving your diet one step at a time. The secret is learning what's not good for you and working towards removing those items rather than going on a long spade diet where you cut everything out, because your brain will much prefer to do things slowly. And one of the last things I have to say is take the opportunity when you're meal prepping. Try and use fresh local produce. Eat with the seasons. You'll find that you save a lot of money when you're buying, local food grown by local farms in season that haven't had any storage and that there's a glut of. Because when there's a lot of it, the prices come down. If they're importing it from other countries, the prices go up. That's just the nature of economics. So use your meal prepping time to cook with the seasons. If you're not sure what to do in the season, download a seasonal planner. It'll tell you what's due in your area. In the summertime, strawberries are going to be cheap. So you make your strawberry dishes. You add strawberries into your, in the winter times, you're not going to have much, but you'll have nuts. Nuts become, and, pears and apples, and those become cheap. Your greens in your summer and your winter, your brassicas in your winter. If you eat with the seasons and you plan your meals with your seasons, you'll get constant variety in a 3-monthly cycle, pretty much, but you'll also save a lot of money, and you'll save the planet because you're removing some of the CO2 emissions from buying food from overseas. We all talk about, saving the planet all the time. The best way to do it is to eat from local gardens or local farms. Better yet, even grow your own food. You might not be able to become fully self-sufficient, but there's nothing better than eating a lettuce that you grew yourself. As with everything I do here on the Clive Bird Experiment, the object is not only to help myself, but inspire others to help themselves. So if you're thinking of if you want to take an opportunity to improve your quality of life and the quality of the food you're eating, then meal prepping is definitely an option that I would choose. I highly recommend it. Until next time, eat well.